Is it time for the Miami Heat to go all in for James Harden or even Joel Embiid? Damian Lillard makes his debut in the Milwaukee Bucks last night, crushing Miami Heat fans everywhere. And Miami Heat, Game 2 tonight versus the Boston Celtics. All this today on another episode of Miami Heat Talk. What's up, you guys? Your boy Ernest here. Happy Friday, aka Friday. Y'all know the weekend's here. It's time to celebrate. And what better way to celebrate than with another Miami Heat Talk adventure? So a few things that I want to talk about today, you guys, as you just heard. This video is going to be about what the Miami Heat can do. Now, look, it's only been one game. Miami's 1-0. As Jimmy Butler says, they're undefeated. Whatever. But you need that same momentum today against Boston. Miami got to come out hard, come out strong. You're playing Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, Drew Holiday. They got a very tough starting lineup. But one thing about Boston and Milwaukee that I'm noticing, great starting lineup. Bench is a little, That's where Miami Heat need to dominate. Our bench last game scored 38 points. That's what Miami Heat bench quality players do. So when the bench is playing that way, it's difficult to defeat the Miami Heat, honestly. So the Heat need to bring it tonight to Boston from 1 to 12. All these players got to step up. Now, I think Miami Heat can pull out this victory. It's going to be a tough one. We need a big game from Tyler Hero. A big game. Definitely make up for game 1. Jimmy, continue to do your thing. Bam, you know what to do. But we need a bigger production from Caleb Martin. Coming out there with 20 minutes for 2 points. I understand you got knee tendonitis, my man, but we need a better game from you. Think about game 7 when you were there at Boston. That's all I got to say about that. So, moving on. I want to first talk about James Harden. Now, I've mentioned James Harden before. We have talked about that in the past. But since then, things have gotten a little bit juicier in Philly. For those of you that don't know, kind of going back, James Harden's been having a problem with Daryl Morey, the general manager. They've been together since James Harden's days in Houston. Daryl Morey once called James Harden the greatest offensive player of all time. They have a beautiful relationship. One of the main reasons why James Harden wanted to go to Philadelphia. Recently, last season, James Harden decided to opt in his player option for $35 million instead of opting out to sign another huge max contract. He's 34 years old. Max contracts are not coming anymore. He opted in with the promise from Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers that this past offseason that happened, he would get a maximum contract. James Harden flopped in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern semifinals. So Daryl Morey didn't want to give him the max contract. Which that, ladies and gentlemen, is a lie. Call it whatever you want. Daryl Morey told James Harden he was going to give him a max contract, and he didn't. And if we know anything about James Harden, if you piss him off, he gets in his feelings, and he's gonna act out. We've seen it in Houston. We've seen it in Brooklyn. We've now seen it in Philly. So James Harden requested a trade. His preference was the Clippers. That's not happening. Apparently, the Clippers don't want to give up specific players to send on the deal. Obviously, it's kind of like the Damian Lillard situation. Damian Lillard only requested to come to Miami. Miami didn't want to give up all their assets to a guy that only wanted to go there, and it blew up in their face. This could happen to the Clippers. And why am I saying that? Well, because in Game 1 with the Heat versus the Pistons, we had a guy by the name of Kyle Lowry who completely shit the bed. 32 minutes, 0 points. Had Kyle Lowry scored anything in those 32 minutes, our win would have been substantially by more than 1 point. Now, I will say this. Kyle Lowry only took one shot in 32 minutes, but he did play aggressively everywhere else. Defense, getting his teammates involved, hitting the open man. Kyle Lowry is amazing at that. But that's not what you want for $30 million. You pay a guy $30 million to give you production. You don't pay a guy $30 million to come off the bench for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm sorry. I love Kyle Lowry. I respect Kyle Lowry. I think he's done some great things in this Miami Heat roster. Doesn't matter what anyone says about him. I get it. I know he hasn't been what we wanted, but I think his productivity in the 2022 season and what he did in the playoffs last year is worth it. But this year, he's on the final year of his contract. That's a sweetie of a contract to trade. So I know when the Miami Heat did not make this deal for Damian Lillard, another potential deal was happening. Now, if you listen to guys like Ira Winderman and Ethan Spolnick, they don't think a trade is going to happen. And you've heard it from Pat Riley. He loves this roster as it's currently construed. All that's nice and everything, but the goal is to win a championship. And I feel that this team currently rostered can do it. This Miami Heat team in the 2024 playoffs, in my opinion, is just as good as any team. Just as good as Milwaukee, just as good as Boston, because we are the deepest team, in my opinion. And then you got some guys that can break out and get even better with this Heat squad. But what solidifies Miami as the favorite? Making a trade. Making a trade for one of these big stars. Now, James Harden, that situation has gotten a little bit worse. James Harden did end up reporting to training camp late, but then he just left the team. I believe it was like 8 to 10 days. He just was not showing up to practice. He wasn't showing up to preseason. He was just causing issues. Then the game against Milwaukee, it was reported that James Harden just showed up to the team facility to ride with his teammates to go to Milwaukee. It sounds like he just doesn't want to practice. He doesn't want to do anything with the team, any team functions. But when it comes to playing games, he's going to do it so he doesn't get fined. As we know in the NBA, if the new CBA rule, if you rest a player and there's no legitimate reason, that player and team will get fined. So James Harden went to go play, but Philly, apparently their security, stopped him. They did not allow him to join the plane. They did not allow him to join the team. Now, if you ask Philly, it was because, we're just trying to look out for James, and he hasn't been with the team for days now, so we need to make sure he gets his shots up, he gets his workout in. All of that on paper was said. But if you hear from James Harden's camp, they were extremely pissed off that Philly did that. So it looks like this marriage is going to be ending. Now, when is it going to be ending is the true question. Philly lost yesterday to Milwaukee, but it was a close game. So I'm sure Philly's thinking right now that we're good with what we have. Let's figure out this whole James Harden situation. But another reason why this deal may be done soon is because now that Philly sees that they can compete with a team like Milwaukee without James Harden, hey, let's trade Harden. Let's get a player who can actually help us and see what we can do with this team. Now let's bring up the Miami Heat, because I know there's so many people that don't want to trade for James Harden. I get it. The dude's a head case. The dude has caused problems in Brooklyn, Houston, Philly. This is the third team where he's causing all these problems. He's a nutcase. Bringing him to Miami. We got strip clubs. We got Miami nightlife style. If anybody knows the history from James Harden, he's not done good with that when he's come down here. James Harden was down here in a playoff series against the Miami Heat in 2022. Wasn't playing that good. I wonder why. So he's a player that gets distracted. He's a player that gets on his feelings. He's a player that's dramatic. But if there's one team that can flip that, if there's one team that can get his mind right, it's the Miami Heat. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. If I was cutting a San Antonio Spurs podcast, I'd be the first one saying here, hell no. Hell no, don't trade for that guy. If I was an OKC podcast, if I was a but if I was a Washington Wizards podcast, if I was a Knicks podcast, a lot of these other teams cannot do right by James Harden. By trading for him, he's not going to be in a good developed system. James Harden needs to be held accountable. James Harden needs to be called out. He needs to play with players that not only do that, but with a coach and an organization that does that. And I know I've said it a million times, and I know it's become a catchy thing to put on t-shirts now. But there's something about this Miami Heat culture that players buy into. There's something about this Miami Heat system that when players come here, they buy in and then they give their hardest. You don't believe me? Look at Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent, incredible with the Heat. Goes to the Lakers, trash. I mean, only one game, but it wasn't a good outing. It's because these coaches don't know how to use these Miami Heat undrafted players. That's because Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are some of the best teammates to have. You throw James Harden into this team. I believe James Harden on the final year of his contract, wanting to make money, gets traded to a team like Miami and tells himself, it's nut up or shut up time. I can either get a big contract next season or I can be out of the league. That's where James Harden is headed. It's either he gets a big contract because he has a great year this year, or this crap continues to happen, and it's possible James Harden won't even get picked up by a team next year. That is the reality of James Harden's situation. So you send James Harden to Miami. He buys into this system, becomes the new starting point guard along Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And yes, having James Harden and Tyler Hero in the backcourt is bad defensively, but you make up for it with other players. You make up for it. Maybe take Kevin Love out the starting roster, put Caleb Martin there for some defense. I don't know. That's Eric Spoelstra. But Eric Spoelstra will be amazing at that. He's the best coach in the NBA. But not only that, if James Harden is playing with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, these are some of the two best defensive-minded players in the NBA. It's going to allow James Harden to be free and continue playing his style of play. It's like I mentioned with Damian Lillard in the past, you guys. He would have been great here because Jimmy and Bam would have allowed him to be the player that he is. So I think James Harden would fit amazingly in this team. Now, here's where I won't, in my opinion, make a trade for James Harden, is if you have to give up a bunch of assets. So let me give you an idea of a package surrounding James Harden that I think is beneficial for Miami. Now, Philly fans and other trolls and fans, they're going to hate on this. They're going to say, oh, it's not going to happen. But you guys have to understand the gravity of the situation. It looks like Philadelphia is going to want to get James Harden out the team. And when a player is in this bad of a situation in a team, sometimes it's good to let him go for pennies on the dollars. You've seen it happen in the past. So here's my suggestion. I've said it in the past, but I'll say it again. The Miami Heat takes Kyle Lowry, who makes $30 million. You take a future first-round draft pick or a pick swap. But most likely it'll be like a 2028 first-round draft pick. You send that to Philadelphia in exchange for James Harden. This is beneficial for both teams. Why? They both get expiring contracts. So Philly can just trade Kyle Lowry somewhere else, or they can buy him out or release him. And Miami gets James Harden, who's on the final year of his contract. So it's not a huge gamble. If it works, great. If not, let him go for the next season. But this is not a huge risk for the Heat. If I were Pat Riley and I had an opportunity to make this trade, I would do it. Hell yeah. Because bringing James Harden in this team is better than a guy who gives you 32 minutes with 0 points. Honestly. But let's say if the Miami Heat do not trade for James Harden. Let's say he ends up going to the Clippers for nothing. And let's say if Philly starts losing games. Now we're going to come to a situation where Joel Embiid can possibly be available. Joel Embiid, last year's NBA MVP, is close friends with Himi. These two played amazing together in Philadelphia. Now, I'm going to say this. I don't want to trade Bam Adebayo. I love Bam Adebayo on this team. I think Bam Adebayo embodies Miami Heat culture. Bam Adebayo is the new Udonis Haslem. Just way better. So, how can a trade get done without involving Bam Adebayo? It's possible Miami might have to add him because you have to beat what other teams offers. But if Joel Embiid tells Philly that he wants to play with Jimmy Butler in Miami, and this is all speculation, you guys. This is no rumors going on. This is just me saying this stuff. Because if this situation with James Harden goes bad and Philly starts losing games, Joel's not going to want to stay there. He's not. He'll request a trade, and you know he would fit perfectly with this Heat team. Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, and Jimmy Butler as a front court, scary. Bam can move to the 4, his natural position. Joel Embiid's a 7-foot center that can hit the 3. Together, that's like David Robinson and Tim Duncan. That's better because David Robinson and Duncan couldn't hit 3s. And then you have Jimmy Butler right there. But here's the thing. What does the Miami Heat have to do to make this trade? Joel Embiid is making $57 million, $52 million, anywhere from 52 to 57. I believe it's 52. Maybe 57. I'm not 100% sure. But when I was working the numbers, it's actually 57, sorry. So when I was working the numbers, I came up with a package that I think is going to work perfectly. And the numbers work. You take Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero. Yes, Tyler Hero, so Philly can build their future. You take multiple first-round picks and pick swaps. Send it to Philadelphia for Joel Embiid and Pat Beverly. Pat Beverly would be amazing here. Being the backup point guard to Josh Richardson, I would be all for it. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think it's possible that the Miami Heat can land Joel Embiid if they're patient? Or do you prefer if the Miami Heat go for the for sure thing right now with James Harden? Or maybe you don't think either of these trades are possible and the Heat should just continue with what they have. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, I'm sure you guys saw it last night. Damian Lillard makes his debut with the Milwaukee Bucks. That's a heartbreaker. He scores 39 points. He hits the dagger in the end of the game, that step back 3, and Heat fans all over are watching thinking, damn it. Watching him in the first game, you guys, you can tell it's an obvious regret that we didn't trade for him. Till this day, I think, yeah, okay, keeping the assets and everything, fine. I would have loved to trade for Damian Lillard, but it is what it is. You got to move forward. I love Milwaukee's team. You got Giannis and Lillard there. In my opinion, that's all they have. Middleton is fine. Lopez is, he's good. He's good. But then after that, they don't really have anybody. You got Beasley starting at the 2. You got Portis is the only quality player coming off the bench, and he doesn't really do that great. So where Milwaukee is lacking is depth. And I think that's going to hurt them come playoff time. I think a team like Miami and a team like Boston can figure that out. Milwaukee's also a second apron team, so let's not forget they can't improve their roster. They can't aggregate trades. They can't sign someone from a buyout. They can't do any of that. So it's going to be really interesting watching how Milwaukee handles this season. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about that whole Damian Lillard thing? What do you think about these possible trade ideas I said? And let me know your prediction score tonight. I call Miami Heat 108, Boston 103. I think it's going to be a really tight knot game. We know that Josh Richardson and Haywood Highsmith are not playing, unfortunately. But I think the Miami Heat are going to be able to get this dub. You just got to focus on your depth. Tyler Hero needs to just continue doing what he's doing. Get those shots in the bucket. Himmy, Bam, y'all know what to do. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please, y'all, take a moment, like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I will not be able to do my live video tomorrow. I'm going to do it for next Saturday. My family and I are leaving town this weekend. Nice little weekend getaway to take some time off. I'm going to try to get some shorts to you guys over the weekend. I'll do my best. But thank you so much for the support, you guys. And until next time, your boy Ernest out. That's enough said.